They say if you want to find the truth, follow the money. But what happens when you follow it? And it leads to something that isn't even part of your government. I mean, think about this. The Federal Reserve isn't actually federal. And it has no reserves. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's just the awkward truth. So let's start there. What is the Federal Reserve? Well, it's the central bank of the United States. It prints the money, sets interest rates, and controls inflation. But here's the twist. It's not owned by the government. It's owned by banks, private banks. Let that sink in for a second. Now, this isn't hidden in some dusty vault. The Fed itself admits it. It's an independent entity within the government, which sounds like a pretty wordy way of saying, we do our own thing. The Fed was created in 1913 by the Federal Reserve Act, a law passed quietly during Christmas break. While most members of Congress were at home sipping eggnog, who pushed for it? Bankers, industrialists, people like J.P. Morgan, Paul Warburg, and Nelson Aldrich, many of whom were directly tied to the biggest banking families in America and Europe. And yes, Paul Warburg, one of the central architects, just so happened to be from a German Jewish banking dynasty. Coincidence? Maybe. But don't look away, because these families didn't just help create the Fed, they profited from it. Here's how it works. Private banks, like Bank of America, Chase and Citi, actually own shares in the 12 regional Federal Reserve banks. That means they get paid dividends every year just for being members. So they own part of the system that sets the rules for the entire system. But it gets worse. The Federal Reserve is the only institution that can create money from nothing, literally nothing. They don't print it with ink and paper anymore, they just type it into a computer. A few clicks and boom, billions in new dollars exist, loaned to banks at near zero interest, which then charge you interest. Sound like a rigged game? Let's talk about inflation. Every time the Fed creates money out of thin air, the value of the money already in your pocket drops. It's the sneakiest tax of all, and nobody voted for it. Prices go up, your rent climbs, your paycheck stretches thinner. And the bankers, they collect interest, fees, and bonuses. Some call that monetary policy. Others call it legalized counterfeiting. Now remember 2008, the crash? Wall Street banks collapsed under the weight of their own greed, and the Fed swooped in with bailouts. Trillions of dollars were handed out to banks that caused the crisis in the first place, and you, the taxpayer, got the bill. It happened again in 2020. It always happens. And if you're wondering who keeps making sure this cycle never ends, look no further than the network behind the Fed. This isn't some tinfoil hat club. We're talking about legacy banking families, hedge fund giants, and global economic influencers. The kind of people who don't attend secret meetings in basements, they host brunches at Davos and still somehow control your mortgage rate. It's about power, and power doesn't discriminate, it just consolidates. Now, why don't politicians ever talk about this? Because they don't control it. Even presidents can't tell the Fed what to do. In fact, the last president who seriously tried to mess with the money system was John F. Kennedy. He issued Executive Order 11110 giving the U.S. Treasury power to issue debt-free money. A few months later, he was dead. Coincidence? That's up to you. Even today, most Americans think the Fed is part of the government. It's not. It's an unelected, unaccountable, privately controlled entity that dictates how much your dollar is worth. That's not a theory, that's just facts. And while the media keeps you focused on culture wars, identity politics, and TikTok beef, the real puppet masters are sitting in boardrooms, adjusting interest rates that determine whether you can afford a house, a car, or a meal. Final thought, we don't have to invent wild conspiracies. The real ones are already here. The Federal Reserve is a privately owned banking cartel that holds America by the throat. And they've done it so well, most people don't even notice the hand squeezing. Once you see it, you can't unsee it.